Hello and welcome to the Business Day exclusive. My name is Elizabeth Musa and today we are all about millionaire moves. I've got joining me today a young man who is passionate about helping young people, especially those in the African American community, create their own wealth journey. His name is Cedric Nash and he is called Your Millionaire Mentor. He's a serial entrepreneur and investor who educates, inspires and motivates wealth building in the African American community. He's also the founder of the Black Wealth Summit 501 organization and the author of the newly released books, Why Should White Guys Have All the Wealth? And also is also the author of How You Can Become a Millionaire Starting from the Bottom and the Millionaire Money Moves Supplemental Investment Guide. He also is the founder and the owner and president and CEO of Oakland Consulting. Oakland provides a range of enterprise IT services that helps organizations realize their business and technology goals. He is also a firm believer and living example that anyone, regardless of age, race, income, or starting point, can build wealth if they have a burning desire, unshakable faith, grit, and a willingness to make the necessary sacrifices. Well, enough of the introduction. Let's get into the business of today. Welcome to the show, Mr. Nash.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here with you today.
Awesome. Let me start by asking you why you started this journey of getting more people empowered to create wealth. Tell us about this journey.
Well, this journey started a long time ago, just coming out of college. I read a lot of books on personal finance, inspired by my mentors. I had 4 millionaire mentors who inspired me and shaped my mindset to want to build wealth. So when I came out of college, I really wanted to create a blueprint for building wealth starting with a paycheck. And so I was able to achieve that. And as a way of paying forward what my 4 millionaire mentors had poured into me, I wanted to spread the love to my community because I believe that, like I said, anybody can build wealth as long as you have that burning desire.
Right. And tell us about what this millionaire mindset is. I mean, there are many people who want to be millionaires. There are people who already are millionaires. They probably have a mindset that we don't know. And then what do aspiring millionaires also, what's this millionaire mindset that they need to know about?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people think that a millionaire mindset is really about, lavish living and lavish spending. And it's quite the opposite. The millionaire mindset is really around frugality. It's really around using your money like a tool to make more money as opposed to using it like a toy. And so it sounds very simple, but it's very difficult to implement. It's because we are influenced by our friends. We're influenced by social media. We're influenced by millionaires and billionaires who are spending millions of dollars on marketing to influence us to use our money to make them richer. And so it's harder and harder for people to keep their own money in their own pockets and building up their own group of assets that provide lifelong income and wealth for them and their family. So, like I said, it's a lot of people talk often about this millionaire mindset. I think they get it wrong. It's really about frugality. It's really around treating your money like a precious resource. And so often in our community, we treat it we have a saying, to fake it until we make it. We treat it more like to make us look more wealthy, and that never is a recipe for success.
And tell us about looking at your own journey. What was the mindset shift rather that you had to make to become a millionaire?
What was interesting is that because my millionaire mentors had poured into me since I was in 11th grade, when I came out of college, I already had that mindset. So when I took my first job out of college as a software engineer, making $36,400 a year in the United States, which was a decent salary at that time for a 25-year-old, I lived on a very, very tight budget, a very strict budget. I made sure I was constantly saving. I bought my first piece of real estate right out of college. I went from my college apartment right into owning my own condominium. And so I was very frugal. I was saving my money. I was only spending on things that were necessary. So my mindset was already there. What's really interesting is that at that age, I never knew how it would turn out. I just believed that was the right process. And it worked because that mindset that cemented in me continued even when I started making significantly more money. And so as I made significantly more money, I always lived below my means. I always made sure that I invested in assets. And over time, those assets have grown and they continue to produce income. And that's really what we have to do. The sad reality is people are in certain financial situations that make it very difficult for them to live as frugal as they need to be. But that really is the answer.
Right. And you talked about your journey, and you rightly mentioned that you started out really early and you went on to even purchase your first real estate, your property, real estate. So what's one mistake, one common mistake investors make at the early stage that you would like them to correct today?
Thank you. I love that you asked that question because I have another book that I've written but I haven't released, and it's targeted to college grads. And it talks about the journey that I took, and it talks about some of the mistakes that I've made and some of the things that I would have done differently. And so one of those things are that when I first came out of college, I wanted to I got married shortly out of college. I bought a condominium and I wanted to kind of, live this life. I bought a condominium. I bought a BMW, was buying fancy clothes, Hugo Boss suits, because I was trying to project this image. There was still work on my mindset that needed to be done. But for the most part, I was in good shape. The one thing I would have done differently, though, is I probably would have purchased a duplex. I would have purchased a property that had 2 or 3 units. And me and my young wife at the time with no kids could have lived in one unit and rented out the others and got to the point where we were living rent free so I could even save more money. So, and then I would have held on to that duplex because, a duplex in the area where I was living today would be worth over $2 million. And I could have gotten it much cheaper. The other interesting thing about that duplex is in the United States, the way financing works, the same financial requirements are needed for a single family that are needed for a duplex, threeplex, even a fourplex. So I still could have gotten in there with very little money as a down payment and had somebody else pay the mortgage and some. So that's the mindset that I'm talking about. It's about how do I maximize the use of my money for my eventual long-term success. And that's the mindset that millionaires have. They don't look for short-term rewards. They look for long-term success.
Right. And let's talk about wealth building and what you think is important and what is not. Do you think age, do you think race, do you think education, do you think all of these things are important factors when it comes to wealth building?
The reality is it's not that important. It's really the mindset. And the reason why I say that is that the education can help in terms of your ability to earn more money. I mean, it does take money to make more money. So the education will help you on what I call the offense, on getting more income so that you can do better things with it. But there's been countless of people, in our history, as well as people even, our parents and grandparents who made modest amounts of money, but they saved a lot and they built significant wealth. And I always talk about my grandmother who made only $200 a month, which is not much money in the United States, but she went on to owning her own home. She saved some money for retirement. She passed money on to her grandkids, of which I received some, and then I basically invested that money. At the same time, I own her house in New York, in the Bronx, and that house is worth over $700,000, and I have it rented out. So that's what generational wealth is really about. It's about efficiently transferring wealth from one generation to another. And so I say efficiently by minimizing tax liabilities, minimizing the amount of money you spend with lawyers trying to transfer over the assets. So I think it's not so much about how much you make. It's really more about the mindset, because if you have the right mindset, you can always find ways to make more money by taking on side hustles and eventually get your investments to generate the income that you want and desire.
Right. And I understand that you are mostly focused on, making sure that the African American community builds wealth. What do you think are some of the financial barriers that we are facing in the African American community?
The biggest barrier, and it sounds like I said, I know I sound like a broken record because I go back and forth to this mindset concept. It really is so important. But the biggest barrier to us as a community is that most African Americans, pretty much all of us, our understanding and our knowledge around wealth it's rooted in financial trauma, right? Starting all the way from slavery. And if you're in the United States, you go from slavery, you go to sharecropping, which my grandfather was a sharecropper. My father was a southern sharecropper. You go from being promised 40 acres and a mule that never happens, gets taken back. You go to, there's a whole bunch of things, redlining, the Jim Crow laws, and even the stuff that we're dealing with today that's setting us back so far in the United States. So what happens is it's our response to that financial trauma that has shaped our mindset in the way that it is. And it's made us desperate. So then we invest in things that we expect are going to give us super fast returns, like cryptocurrency and things like that, right? We basically fall for all of these tricks that don't really get us there because our mindset says we're behind, we need to speed it up, so we've got to basically take chances. And the realities about wealth is that it's a slow process. It's about slow, consistent investing in quality assets that appreciate and generate over time. It also has us distrustful of our fellow brothers. So then we have a difficult time pulling our money together to invest together. All of these are mindset concepts. The other piece is that it has us overcompensating. So basically, I talk about fake it till we make it. We spend money to convince people that are not wealthy that we're wealthy, right? That's overcompensating as opposed to using that capital to literally make us wealthy. All of these are mindset things that hold us back. And so in order to basically build wealth and to shift that mindset, it really takes the right village, right? It starts with having the right environment of people that are serious about building wealth and willing to put the work in. And that's why I created this Black Wealth Growth Challenge, where I mentor people for an entire year. And in that process, there's a huge mindset that's happened. They get coaching on investing. They learn from other millionaire investors, and they're inspired. And they're inspired to stay the course. And they're in a course with people of like-minded. So that's really, really what's needed. And it's a slow process, and it takes time, but it's very, very doable.
Thank you for breaking that down for us. We are in Africa, so oftentimes people talk about poverty levels being high. It's hard for many people to even think of wealth creation when they have yet to put food on their tables. All of these things are things that people are not quite concerned about, building wealth when they are yet to, have a 3-square meal. What do you think is the way out of this? Do you think that it's still possible for people to build wealth with high levels of poverty?
Yes, there is. And like I said, it's been done, between generations. There's a book I read called, it's called Black Fortunes, and it talks about the six African Americans or Africans that escaped slavery to become millionaires. And they started way before the levels of poverty in Africa today. These are people who started as slaves, who started just out of slavery, who were able to pull some money together and invest in the same things: real estate, stocks and bonds, private equity, gold, the whole 9 yards, and become millionaires. So the whole point is like, no matter where you're starting from, it's possible. It just means that the journey is going to be slower and it's going to be harder. And that just means that you have to have that much more resolve. You got to find so many ways to make income. And what's interesting about Africa, which I love, I call it a new frontier because there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of things that are happening. One of the things that I see, and I might be wrong on this, but one of the things I don't see that Africa is taking advantage of to the full extent, and that's the technology revolution that's happening.
Right.
African, businesses, there's so much technology that could be brought to those businesses that could significantly increase efficiencies and create opportunities for young people that have embraced these new technologies. I'm talking about artificial intelligence. I'm talking about cybersecurity. Talking about a lot of the technology centered around mobile technology and electric vehicles and the whole 9 yards. It's a huge opportunity, and I believe also that there's ways through research and hard work to identify ways to get capital for those businesses. And that's really, really the key. In fact, I really can't talk about it now, but I'm working on something that does such that to help bring capital to African-American people to kind of, spark their entrepreneurial dreams and goals.
Truly look forward to that. But when I was reading through your bio, I did see that you spoke about spending what your money makes, and I was really curious to know what that means. How does one set up their finances so as to be able to spend what their money makes?
I love that. That's really, really the key. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people take their money and they spend their money, and they're not using it like a tool. When you use your money like a tool, that means that you invest in things that generate more income. An example of things that generate more income is you can invest in multifamily properties. I know in Africa, people pay their rent for the entire year.
Right.
So you can find properties that you can buy and fix up and rent those properties out. So you're not spending the money that it takes to buy the properties. You're spending the rent, the proceeds of the rent. So you're spending what your money is making. The other example is, I know in Africa, you can now invest in the U.S. stock market. There are things called dividend aristocrats. These are dividend stocks that have been producing a dividend. And a dividend is when a company makes a profit, they decide to share some of those profits with shareholders in the form of quarterly dividends. Well, some companies pay 5 or 6% dividends to their investors. So by buying a whole bunch of dividend stock, now you can you can spend the dividends while keeping the base investment continuing to grow. That's the concept of what I call making millionaire money moves. It's about using your capital to invest in assets that appreciate in value at the same time generate income. A business is another kind of thing. It's where you put your money in to start a business, and the money that your business generates, you can spend a portion of that. But if you don't have any capital to invest in these assets, you'll never get that system going. You'll never get that system moving.
Right. And some of us are not even creating budgets. Some of us don't even know how to stay on a budget. Can you give us some tips on implementing? I understand that you have something called, is it the M Power Budget? Because I did see that. So do you want to give us tips on implementing using this budget?
Yeah, it's called the Millionaire Money Moves Power Budget. And I call it a power budget because it really challenges you to at least save and invest at least 27% of your income. And a lot of people can't initially do that. And so the name of the game is, if you can't do that, then you've got to make more income, because as you make more income, it changes the distribution of that formula until you can get to 27%. And the reason why I say that is because you need to invest a significant portion of your income in order to build sustainable wealth. And I have templates that kind of allow people to put their current budget in, categorize their expenditures, and it will create a graph to show them how their current budget stacks against the Millionaire Money Moves Power Budget. But my mother would always say, my mother died when I was 19. I'll never forget her saying this, that if you can't manage a little bit of money, you won't be able to manage a lot of money. And that's so true. And you'll find some people who come into big money fast, a lot of times like American athletes or international athletes, and they spend it real fast. And it's because they never developed the right mindset around that money, and they never create a budget. So no matter how much money you make, I mean, I make a decent amount of money, and I still live off of a budget. It's the same budget structure I created when I came out of college when I was 25 years old. You have to manage and account for your dollars so that you can put them to work to benefit yourself. One of the challenges, especially in this credit kind of environment in the United States, is that, and Africa doesn't have this problem for the most part, is because the credit cards give people this false sense of more money than they have. And it makes it almost impossible for them to stay on budget. Plus, like I said, marketers are constantly telling you you need this, you got to buy this thing, or this is going to make you look more wealthy or more stronger or whatever. And it causes people to spend money on things that they really don't need. So the key to staying on budget, and I talk about this as well, as when you look at the power budget, I have you create several accounts where you put money into those accounts according to the distribution of your budget. And then when that money is gone in that bucket, it's almost like putting different money in different buckets. And when that money is gone in that bucket, then you just have to stay at home and cut your spending until you get more money put into the bucket. So, that's one way. It's going to segment your money into what is mandatory for you to pay in terms of what is discretionary, things that are optional, which is another bucket for what you need to save and invest, right? Another bucket for how you reward yourself when you achieve your goals, right? And also another bucket for giving back, because that's an important paradigm in wealth building. So that's in essence, I know I'm going on and on, but that's in essence the structure of our budgeting. And that's key to building wealth. It's a slow process, but you've got to manage your dollars very, very carefully and track them if you're going to get there.
Right. And, you've been speaking on saving and investing more, and people are curious to know what are ways to strategically invest. What will be your tips on earning more? Because there are people who, probably want to invest, but then they just have just a little chunk, and they're wondering, what am I even going to invest?
I love
like
that.
a Nigerian. So they're thinking, how do I then earn more so I can invest more? So what ways will you tell us on how to strategically invest?
Well, like I said, it sounds like you're talking two different questions, but to strategically invest, I have something on my website at cedricnash.com, and it's called my investment ladder. And it basically shows people how to go to zero to millions. And it has different levels of investors, from a level 1 investor to a level 7 investor. And so I created this because I'm real serious about teaching people how to become a millionaire starting from the bottom. And I needed to be able to show a roadmap of how you do it. And I basically talk to people of how do you get to $1,000, and then you can invest into the stock market, into ETFs, or into index funds or individual stocks. And then as you grow that money up to 25,000 or whatever, then I go to the next band, 25 to 50,000, where you can invest in single family homes or and continue to invest in the stock market. So it's a roadmap, because your portfolio, your investment portfolio, in order to be safe, needs to be heavily diversified across stocks, real estate, entrepreneurship, and even potentially private equity. So if you get a chance, you can go to my website at cedricnash.com, look at my Millionaire Money Moves link, and it will basically explain my entire system. But that's really, really the process. And you've got to be patient and consistent, regardless of what happens with the market. Now, some people may say, well, I don't have that much money to invest. And that's a good answer, because the reality is the best way to invest in the market is consistently every month or every paycheck, not to pour loads of money into the market. It's called dollar cost averaging. So you're averaging your price as the market continues to grow. Whether or not the market goes down or up, if it goes down, you're buying more shares. If it goes up, your shares that you own have gone up in value. That's the strategy. And then there's also a thing called buying slices of stocks. So with at least $5, you can buy a slice of a stock. So if you can't buy a whole share, you can buy a slice. So there's no excuse why people and why we should not be investing. And I want to close out by saying that's our number one mistake, is that we spend so much time paying down our debt and we don't spend enough time and energy investing. And investing takes time to build that momentum. And that's what has to happen.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cedric Nash. I would ask you if you have any final words for us today, but if you don't have any, we could close out. But do you have any final words for us today?
Well, my final words are, I just want to encourage people to keep focused, to keep motivated, keep investing. I don't care what your level of debt is. Take a piece of the money that you make and put it away for you and your family in the future. The goal is to get those investments big enough to where they generate enough income to provide lifelong income for you, as well as provide lifelong income for your family. And finally, when you go and God calls you to glory, you can't pass the income from your job to your family, but your investments and the income that your investments make can definitely be passed to the next generation and built upon. And that's what generational wealth is all about.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cedric Nash, for your time today. It was truly insightful speaking with you, and we'll definitely check out your website, to just learn on and just imbibe some of these tips that you'll be sharing there. But thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
And this has been the Business Day exclusive here on bdtv. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Thank you for watching.
Last week, the uncertainty was at a feverish pitch. Markets panicked, and as the international trading order was upended, $5.4 trillion was wiped off from US stocks in 2 days as China hit back with retaliatory levies and fears of a recession in the global economy deepened. The US Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, admitted tariffs were higher than expected and the risk of higher inflation and recession are up. But still, the latest non-farm payrolls, that's the US data that came out on Friday, according to Jerome Powell, show a strong economy and no need to change their view on long-term inflation, which is still well anchored to their targets. Juliet Anama, a seasoned and experienced executive sitting on the board of several organizations, also founded CGNR Strategy, comments on how companies can respond to the dynamic context. Hello, this is Global Business Insights, where we look deeper at the main business stories moving markets all over the world. More than 50 nations are reported to have reached out to the White House to begin trade talks since U.S. administration rolled out sweeping new tariffs. Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te on Sunday offered zero tariffs, also pledging to remove trade barriers rather than imposing reciprocal measures, adding that Taiwanese companies will also raise their U.S. investments. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also said on Sunday he hopes Trump will ease tariffs on Israel when the two meet this week in Washington. The Nasdaq Composite entered a bear market on Friday, while the Dow dipped into correction as the jitters around the U.S. sweeping new tariff regime led to a sell-off. The Nasdaq closed more than 20% below its last record close in December, while the Dow was also down 10% lower from its recent high. More volatility expected this week as negotiations and countermeasures play out. For longer-term clients who can tolerate the volatility and perhaps more pain, this may be a buying opportunity given that the prognosis was mostly okay across several sectors in terms of potential growth opportunities. How much of that has changed remains the question many must be asking. Indeed, the models and algorithmic computations and patterns that advised trading have been thrown out of gear, and it will take time to learn and understand how to pick new winners and losers in a recalibrating scenario. That means the risk of getting it wrong on markets is unusually high, and in other words, be safe or get out of the kitchen if you can't stand the heat. But there are ways companies can adjust to the uncertainty. Tim Sarson, head of UK tax policy KPMG, says in a note that there are things businesses can do as the landscape calls for proactivity. First, he speaks of the need to be on top of all the trade policy changes. As negotiations go on or break down, we could expect more announcements. Then, of course, players with cross-border operations need to review and adapt their supply chain. That will include looking at if your business should be diversifying its sourcing to countries having better tariff treatment. Also, contracts may need to be renegotiated with clauses to reflect tariff-related fluctuations, and if you can, shifting tariff responsibility to suppliers through modified terms of sale. Also, tariff mitigation strategies could include analyzing product classifications and opportunities to potentially qualify for lower tariffs, leveraging free trade agreements and free trade zones where they could apply. A lot can be done to adjust. Still on tariffs, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in an update on FX market developments last week, noted a period of adjustment following the recent announcement of new import tariffs by the United States government. Weakened crude oil prices also present new challenges for oil exporting countries. So, to ensure orderly market functioning, CBN on Friday facilitated market activity with provision of $197.71 million through sales to authorized dealers. This is to foster stability, transparency, and efficiency in the foreign exchange market. Another consequence of higher tariffs for governments, the likelihood of higher interest rates for longer. A stickiness in inflation persists with fresh price pressures. Heavy dollar borrowers like Nigeria will face challenges. The Debt Management Office just released December 31, 2024 debt statistics showing total and foreign debt still inching higher. Foreign debt was up from $42.4 billion to $45.7 billion. In naira terms, total debt went up from 97.3 trillion to 144.6 trillion naira. High levels of debt service continue to further squeeze an already tight fiscal situation. Jaguar Land Rover is pausing shipments of its Britain-made cars to the United States for a month as it considers how to mitigate the cost of the new US 25% tariff on foreign cars. We could go on and on as businesses plot their responses, but let's hear from Juliet Anama, CEO CG&R Strategy LLC, as she comments on some simple things companies need to consider to ride the uncertainty. As I said, Juliet Anama chairs and sits on the board of several multinational companies with cross-border operations.
How do you manage a business in a time of high uncertainty? I can talk about possibly three things in three main buckets. It's probably not exhaustive, so bear with me. I just like things to be simple. The first one, remember the words from the US Secretary of Defense during George W. Bush's time, Donald Rumsfeld. Rumsfeld said, there are things that we know. Those are known knowns. There are things that we know we don't know. Those are known unknowns. And then there are things that we don't even know that we don't know. I think a period of high uncertainty certainly forces a business to reconsider what it knows and what it doesn't know. And then armed with that very frank admission of what the company knows and what it doesn't know, then it can go into really running multiple scenarios, stress testing its strategy and its execution. Hardly any well-run company has ever gone down because of high uncertainty. It's always related to the strategy and execution. Now, let's take one scenario. Let's say there's a US company, US-based company, it's retail, it's clothing, and it manufactures in China. Okay. Now, since April 2nd, what does the company now know? It knows clearly that compounded tariffs will mean that the company's products being shipped from China will attract 54% in tariffs. That's known. It also knows that it cannot ship small packages because the de minimis threshold no longer exists. Thirdly, it also knows that it cannot really pass tariffs, the cost of those tariffs directly to the consumer. There's going to be price sensitivity. So those things are clearly known. Some of the things that it will classify as known unknowns, for example, will be a company like that will want to start establishing new sites for manufacturing. But where? It's not clear. Vietnam, Cambodia, out of the question. Does it now start to consider countries in Africa, countries in Latin America, taking advantage of the lower tariffs there? Possible, but what about consistency of supply if they are not yet tested? What about getting those products at the same quality in terms of what it's been getting from China? So those are known things it can do, but a lot of unknowns in terms of what the possibilities are. And then you have a different bucket. That's the last bucket, which are the unknown unknowns. For example, the company will probably start to say, are there certain raw materials out there that if we use them to manufacture our products, our clothing, we could actually reduce the cost of production to a point that we totally eliminate the negative impact of the tariffs? Unknown. What if the company takes the next 4 to 6 months and completely shifts its manufacturing base to, let's say, El Salvador in Central America, and Trump unwinds the whole thing after like seven months? That, again, is very much unknown. But if you look at everything, the examples I've given on this particular issue of tariff uncertainty around tariffs, all the changes that a company is going to make, everything to do with strategy and execution, is all happening around a very narrow scope of areas. So consumer price sensitivity is one, supply chain is another one, logistics is another one, possibly product design could be another one. Okay, so that brings me to my second point. High uncertainty typically generates a high velocity and frequency of discussions and anxiety and thoughts and actions. So much so that you end up in a situation where the shadow of the dragon becomes much more dangerous than the real dragon itself. So the second thing I wanted to touch on is it's important during a time of high uncertainty like this to ring fence the parts of the business that are not going to change. Marketing isn't going to change drastically overnight because of tariffs. Neither is customer service going to change. Neither is human resources, legal. There are lots of parts of the business that will not change. So ring fence those and make sure that people are just doing their job and they're insulated from the high velocity of discussions, and rightly so. A lot of discussions and a lot of thoughts and actions we go into figuring out about consumer price sensitivity, figuring out about what new manufacturing sites, figuring out about logistics, shipments, what's the cost going to be relative to tariffs. All those things will have to change. So that's the second thing. The third component that I will touch on is be flexible around governance, in the sense that it might just be that you would have to have a short executive committee that really looks at geopolitics at a time like this. And you gather people based on knowledge, based on experiences as is needed. So it's not a standing executive committee. It just happens to be an executive committee that you constitute for this period. And it does its work and use it as a sounding board for all the actions and all the decisions that needs to be made. And that's it. Okay. So I've just listed 3 things. Those are the 3 things that I think are very important. They're very simple. Like I said before, they're not exhaustive, but they could be a good place to start. Thank you.
Saudi Arabia state oil company Saudi Aramco on Sunday lowered crude oil prices for Asian buyers in May to their lowest in 4 months after OPEC Plus decided to increase supply on Thursday. The May official selling price for flagship Arab light crude was cut. It used to be $2.3 above the average price of Oman and Dubai prices. Now it's $1.2 a barrel above the average of Oman and Dubai prices. A surprise output increase by OPEC Plus amid economic uncertainty and recession fears continue to weigh on oil prices. Brent crude this morning plunged down over 2%, now under $64 a barrel. The latest data this morning shows that Germany's industrial sector returned to contraction in February, with industrial production down 4% year over year versus January's 1.6%. All this as Greece's central bank governor Yanis Stournaras warns that trade war could lead to a large negative demand shock in the Eurozone. Asia-Pacific markets extended their sell-off as concerns over a global trade war continue to fuel a risk-off mood. Chinese markets also took a hit from Beijing's retaliatory move to raise tariffs. Goldman Sachs also expects China to accelerate fiscal easing measures to offset the adverse impact of tariffs on economic growth. Well, that's all on this episode of Global Business Insights. Thanks for watching. This is Bode Oshosami. Bye-bye.
this conference is catered to addressing the housing deficit and helping us to seize some of the opportunities that we have present.
BusinessDay Media Limited held its annual property investment conference Pre-Invest on the 14th of March. The conference brought together stakeholders, investors, policymakers, and innovators to unlock Nigeria's $900 billion real estate market and address the opportunities, challenges, growth, and future of the industry. This year's edition is themed The Future of Real Estate, harnessing demographics, urbanization, and opportunities amid economic shift. BusinessDay's publisher, Frank Ibohun, delivered a notable welcome address, emphasizing that the real estate sector is no longer just evolving, but redefining the future of Nigeria's non-oil economy.
The real estate sector is not defined by just the data, the GDP data that we talk about or that we hear about. The real estate sector is more crucial, more vital than any data can suggest. Following a recent gross domestic product rebasing by the National Bureau of Statistics, your sector was adjudged to have surpassed the energy sector, the oil and gas sector, to become the third contributor to economic development in Nigeria.
According to PwC 2024 report, the real estate is now one of Africa's most dynamic sectors, with a market value projected to exceed $900 billion by 2030.
The influx of unqualified practitioners is a major challenge confronting the real estate industry within Nigeria and especially in Lagos State. And this has negatively impacted the sector's credibility and growth. With Lagos State being a reflection of Nigeria's urbanization and also one of the fastest growing urban areas in the world economically, the increasing demand for residential, commercial, and industrial properties has given rise to fraudulent practices such as multiple allocations of the same property to different tenants, inflated rent prices, and substandard construction projects. These issues not only discourage investors, but also pose a serious threat to public trust and investor confidence as key elements of property investment in the sector. In Lagos State, we are committed to transforming the real estate industry. As we continue to regulate and professionalize the sector, I urge all stakeholders, investors, developers, and real estate professionals to advocate for ethical practices and also register with the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority to enhance regulation and credibility, as well as foster an environment where real estate investments can thrive safely and sustainably.
The conference captured various solid panel sessions with reputable industry giants.
Government does not have lands anymore. And this has brought creative things. What is our JVs that we do? We partner with families who have family lands, but don't have the means to develop it. And we share the apartments. When I say land is not available, I'm talking about vacant land. Lands are occupied. And we have a major regeneration agenda for Lagos State.
We also got a chance to speak to some of the speakers, and they shared their submissions.
One of the key issues with housing is just the cost. The cost of construction is high. The cost of financing is high. The interest rates from our financial institutions are high, and all that adds to the problem of affordability. So in order to resolve that problem, there needs to be policies in place to, number one, address the issue of high cost of building materials. So import substitution, local production and development of the value chain materials will bring down the cost.
Fortunately, in Nigeria, capturing data is, an ordeal, but that is the only thing that is going to actually allow us to understand where we're going as a nation, as an industry, as a market, and capturing that data, whether you're talking about the private sector and individually as real estate companies capturing data in a CRM, or the government capturing data from a survey perspective. Data is the only trend that we need to know about to be able to capture the opportunity that's currently wide open in the market.
99.9% of houses and properties that I see being built disobey the fundamental laws of building. There isn't the infrastructure or the manpower to regulate all these buildings. If I am going to build and invest my money in building, I will pay for the consultants. I will let them do their work and I will listen to them. But then maybe because I am educated and myself, I am a consultant, I cannot tell you the number of people who will not pay for consultancy. And I sit and I listen and I watch them. Most builders now, if you say to them, did you put in a dam-proof course? They don't even know what it means. Meanwhile, we have rising damp. We are a city that is, barely a foot above sea level. So the fault isn't the government. There's enough legislation with the government, and anybody who wants to do the right thing can do the right thing without waiting for government to come and enforce the right thing.
Construction is not an easy job. You have to be competent when you are doing it. If you don't have the competence, employ the competent hand, the project manager, the cost adjuster, the cost people, the country surveyors, the engineers. They must be properly in place. When they are in place, then you get your housing off ground quickly.
The conference was able to capture some of the major challenges that the real estate sector currently faces, with solutions suggested by the speakers present. Attendees also had opportunities to get answers to their questions. Since inception, the BusinessDay Property Investment Conference, PRINVEST, has become a crucial tool for insightful deliberations on the future of Nigerian real estate industry, and the organizers remain unrelenting in making sure that the conference continues to address the needs of the masses.
Nigeria's strides in board diversity is at approximately 30% female representation among top companies, and that demonstrates the impact of collective effort. It can be done. So with intentionality, we can replicate this across all sectors and all levels. Please let us continue to champion gender equality and women's empowerment for national and global prosperity.
Just like the keynote speaker, Funke Opeke, said today, that when you start on a journey, you never really know where it's going to take you to. Yeah, so you have an idea. We had a plan. We're very intentional. There was clarity around the vision, clarity around our model, and we took it in stages. And as we've gone along, new ideas have come in from the advisory board members, from all the volunteers that have come in. The important thing is that the core principle is, in line with the vision, is to develop women to build a better nation. And we're focused on building leadership capacity through structured mentorship and also the advocacy part of our work to try and ensure that the right policies, the right laws are promulgated, and that where policies and guidelines already exist, that they're reviewed if they're not fit for purpose, to ensure that every human being, male and female, has an equal opportunity to actualize themselves and to, achieve their aspirations. Well, what I'd like them to take away is that, first of all, it's a mentoring book. It's a reference point. It's a guide. What we've done here as Whisker is to chronicle, the path that we have trodden in terms of mentorship for the last 16 years. So it's very, very rich in terms of evidence-based, in terms of, a track record of a model and a methodology that actually works. So we're hoping that, everybody will pick up a copy of this book, try and get access to it, either physically from the Whisker office or online, because we're going to make sure it's available online on Amazon. And through this process, appreciate the importance of having a mentor, having a role model, having a sponsor, building relationships, and all the things that we teach, in the Whisker School of Excellence. It's a talent development solution. It's a leadership development toolkit. It's a guide for training your staff. So I think in every secondary school, in every university, in every office, if you're looking for how you can better manage your talent, not just your female talent, your female and your male talent, then this is a book that can really help you. And you try to fix the price at a level that we think, is affordable and accessible to everyone, because what we're trying to do through this book is to democratize mentorship, because we feel that mentorship is so important.
Meetings at 1 a.m. Now, women who are married or in committed relationships and things like that find it difficult to attend 1 a.m. meetings. And these are where decisions are taken, far-reaching decisions. You say, oh no, everyone's working during the day, we can only meet after midnight. No, you have to make sure that we change the culture of politics to suit women as well.
Thank you.
It's important for structures such as, I spoke about the passing of the bills, the gender bills in front of the National Assembly. This gender bills encourages the 35% affirmation bill, which we have signed in Kwara State, to make sure that there's 35% and women at least, to also make sure that women have special seats, so that certain seats, go to women, to make sure that women's have, because currently women's spouses who have foreign spouses cannot get Nigerian citizenship.
Yeah.
This is not the case for men. Men who have foreign partners, their spouses get citizenship.
Yeah.
So that would also, encourage women in this regard if all these gender bills are passed. Apart from these gender bills, that takes us to the table. I talked about the culture of politics, making sure that the culture is friendly to women.
Yeah.
It's very important not to have meetings at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
It's very important to make sure that women are informed of these meetings, giving adequate preparation, and made to, take one step further, are able to use their voices. Now, for what we've done in Kwara State, we, encourage that more states do that, and we have seen more states also do that. I told you we have the youngest female House of Assembly member in Kwara State. And this is fostering a young woman to use her voice. And we have 5 women in the House of Assembly. Other states like Ekiti State have 6 women. We have states like Ogun, Ebonyi, and other states that have women deputy governors, and so many other states. So at the subnational level, we are seeing that increase going on. So at the federal level, that's why we're encouraged by the gender bills being passed. Now we get women at the table. We want them to be able to stay at the table. So the mentorship and sponsorship is important, because for a woman to go into politics is very expensive. So we need to foster ways in which to be able to sponsor them, to keep them in there, and to make sure that once they are there representing us, they can use their voices. So these are, some of the structures that we have. We want organizations to sponsor women to come forward, pick a particular woman and be able to sponsor her through so she can get through. We're already seeing the changes by the changes in law. We need laws to be changed, and the changes are coming in law. Then we need to change the norms, and culture.
Yeah.
So I talked about transforming norms. We had a conference in Abuja where we invited traditional rulers to come and talk to us about their role in transforming norms. In certain places, women can't do certain things. So the more we are able to mainstream that women can participate in certain things. And you see, we also need to shape perception. Men have to be made to see that women being transformed is not a threat to men. Yeah. Because currently you have one hand tied behind your back. Almost 50% of the population is not getting the fair chances that they need. So the society is not at its utmost best. But men should understand that promoting women means that the society is better even for them. You know, it's not a threat to them. So these are some of the things that we can deploy to make sure that women stay in power. Well, I'd just like to say that they should keep their dream alive. I decided around the age of 6, I told my dad I wanted to follow him. I wanted to go into the foreign service, and I kept that up. So believe in yourself and believe in your dreams. And then we encourage people now to have several streams of employment. In Kwara, I teach women skills acquisition programs, makeup and makeover, confectionery, sewing, tailoring, design, smelting, all kinds of things, drone technology for farming. We want women to go into farming, and do all these things. So have a separate stream of income as well to support yourself. And, the sky is just the beginning. You will get there. So just believe in yourself. Have mentors, have sponsors, and have a separate stream of income. And just stick to your dream. Don't get discouraged.
We had about 77% of girls, upon starting our program, felt that STEM are careers for men. And this is in today's world. And you're wondering how. But then you start to see that with mentorship, with exposure to training, and then they start to build that confidence. And they think, you know what, I can do this. So you are demystifying what seems to be very complicated and complex.
So WTech runs training programs, mentorship programs, and also research. Our training programs include after-school clubs in Lagos, Kwara State, and Ondo State. And then also we have the STEM residential camp for teenage girls, so girls in secondary school. And then we also have a mentorship program. So once the girls have decided that they want to pursue STEM, we match them with mentors so that they are guided along their career path. Okay, so I would say find your why, find what it is that interests you, because STEM is very broad. You need to find the area that aligns with your area of interest, whether it's helping people stay healthy, whether it's helping people to be productive, save time, whether it's financial management. So find your why, find what interests you. And then research and find the different career options. Once you have identified possible areas, find people that you can speak to, whether people in person or online. There are so many resources online. And then once you are there, then of course the training never stops. So make sure that you keep learning and learning so that you can stay relevant in the field.
I've had about 3-4 male CEOs who were able to identify the value in me and decided to sponsor me through the organizations that I worked for. And so as I moved across the ladder, these men and the he for she's in our lives, I think really, really deserve a lot of they need to be acknowledged significantly because they've also played that role for a number of us. So the sponsors that I've had propelled me and what the role of a sponsor is, to speak for you in the room where you're not in. So a number of times they have been able to do that for me. And I hope that I'm also doing that now for the women and men that work with me.
There are many opportunities for business women. Where interest rates are in Nigeria today at very high levels beyond 30%. Through the Bank of Industry, we, FSDH, and a number of other Nigerian institutions have been able to access cheap funding for female entrepreneurs that are running successful businesses. So interest rates that are close to not single digits, but early double digits, and is available to structured businesses who want to scale their businesses. So that's one scheme that is available. We in FSDH, we also have beyond financing solutions, we have non-financial solutions for women. So because we realize that beyond money, beyond funding, there are other things that business entrepreneurs require. So we provide mentorship programs, we provide training, we have tie-ups and alliances with some institutions that help to train women and help them be successful in their businesses. We also attach them to mentors within their fields that help them scale their business, help them better understand what they should be doing and looking out for in business. For women starting off in their career, I would say that identify where your strength is, identify what you love to do in that space. Banking, finance was my own love, really, and it was one area that I knew that I wanted to know more about. Second thing, be a subject matter expert in anything you choose to be. Because you're a woman doesn't mean you're going to be pushed up, and we need to get away from that. You have to be a knowledgeable woman, a subject matter expert in your field for you to expect to be elevated. And so do your best, know your work, and be consistent. Do not give up. We're talking about grit today, which is the strength of character. Be consistent. Make sure you do not give up. There will be challenges along the line, but challenges do not define you. Challenges actually help you to scale. So embrace those challenges and you'll be amazed at what comes out of you. And I wish you all the best, and I look out to hear success stories for all the women around.
One of my key takeaways, I would say, is from the keynote speaker, CEO of Main One, Funke Opeke. I heard her story, and I have to say this is the first time I'm actually hearing her story. And when the facilitator was introducing her, right, and she talked about the fact that she eats nose, as cereal for breakfast. Yeah. I was like, okay, let me see that. And then she came on, and I have to say that her story is a testament to the theme of this conference, which is resilience. When she was speaking, I kept on just trying to put myself in that situation and wondering what my response would be, at every stopgap, at every issue that came up. And one thing I have taken away is just never take no for an answer. Always see no as an opportunity. And that's one thing I am glad to say that I'm also going to distill into the community She Ventures. Just never take no for an answer. One thing she also said that really struck me is how it's obvious more and more that women, and this is all respect to the men in the room, but the way women face problems and challenges, they just take it head on and are able to sort of pivot gracefully, just flow and adapt with the change. And I think that's one of the reasons why women are the backbone of the Nigerian economy. Gaps that we've done a lot, but two main gaps I see, and that's when it comes to access for women. And She Ventures, FCN-based desk for women, is built on 4 pillars. Access to finance, access to networks, access to knowledge, and access to markets. For example, there was an event earlier on today. It was a training program that we had put up for the fiscally challenged, site challenged. And we had quite a number of questions about access to finance. Now, one of the things that has struck me in my role in the bank is that a lot of times we talk about access to finance as the main challenge for female entrepreneurs. But in the 5 years that we've been in operation, we've seen that that is not the key challenge. The key challenge really is knowledge, financial literacy, knowledge. And I kept on asking the women, how many of you know your businesses? If you're giving a loan today, assuming you have a business and we give you a loan, not a grant of say 1 million, right? Are you sure that that 1 million that we give you today will not kill your business? What are your margin lines like? We're giving you this loan at 16%. How are you going to ensure that you pay it back? And this is something that a lot of female businesses do not understand, because women in Nigeria, especially in the informal sector, tend to go into business not because they have the know-how or technical capacity or financial literacy. It's more subsistence living, right? They want to feed their family, they want to send their children to school, and so they go into business, which is one of the things that we try to do a lot of in FCNB. And in fact, we have a mentorship program with Whisker, and they mentor about 1,000 of our women every year, because we've seen that knowledge is actually one of the key things. So talking about a gap, it's financial literacy for women, and that is something that we need to scale up in West Africa. The next thing is, you've provided financial know-how and literacy, we've provided access to markets, access to networks, and then for me, the last thing is access to finance. Now, when it comes to finance, huge challenges as well, because we talk about single-digit interest rates. Now, give a woman a single-digit interest rate, but in Nigeria, we're still asking for things like collateral, right? How many women in Nigeria can access that facility? So you find out that, you come out and you say, or maybe the government says, we have $1 billion to give to female entrepreneurs. This year, it has to go. At the end of the year, maybe 100 million has been drawn down because women don't have the capacity to access those finances. So we need to start thinking about, if it's in our risk structures, curating something specific to female entrepreneurs. And then, so you don't take them through the same process that you'll take any other entrepreneur, because their challenges are a bit different and peculiar. So are we talking about, for example, cash flow lending? Is that something that we can think of doing? Because what I believe is that if we find that perfect product, and I'm sure FCM will be the first bank to do that, you'll be surprised that even if it's not a single digit rate, lower interest rate, or you have the specific product for that woman, you'll be surprised that those female entrepreneurs knocking at your door to access finance.
I am, first of all, in awe of Amina. I was here the very first event that Whisker started. How many years ago was that? A long time, but not that long. And I could never, but I knew her, that it would morph into this giant organization, able to mentor so many people, impact so many diverse organizations, and continuously excel every year to put this event together. And I was just teasing her. I said, look, you brought presidents from all over the world. It's just that America has their own president right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if I hear one day that you the American British president here with you. The tentacles that this organization has reached is really formidable. And it's a textbook on how to go about setting up not-for-profit. And for that, I think she really needs to be applauded.
I just wanted to say that this is our 16th year, and it's been amazing. It gets better and better every year. I come every year, and it's always an inspiration. And congratulations to Mrs. Oyagbola and the entire team that makes up Whisker, because there's a large team involved.
I believe inclusion and diversity in organizations and corporations in Nigeria have always been there. Going back to when I look at my mom, when she coming back from America, she worked at Securities and Exchange Commission and moved up to her director position before heading to becoming chairman and CEO of Investment and Securities Tribunal in Abuja. And I know a lot of other women like her. So it's always been there for women, maybe just not in leadership roles in comparison to men. And I think the thing is women just need to be bolder, braver, persistent in trying to achieve their career and business goals in Nigeria. Yes, it can be a difficult country to navigate, a difficult terrain to navigate culturally, but it's definitely there for the taking if you do want to succeed, if you do want to be successful in your career and in your business. Just be persistent, just be brave, just be bold, and go for it.
Good morning and welcome to the BDTV Breakfast Show. I am Bethel Ogujobi.
My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And this is the social listening segment on the BDTV Breakfast Show.
We're talking about the Fly Nigeria Act. Can you give us a background into what this is about?
We are here today on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, to gather opinion about a pressing issue.
I will look at the cost of petrol.
We get away from Nigeria, we dey suffer.
The income is not really increasing, but the prices of items are increased.
Nothing like savings again. No. You only pray for that money to reach you that month.
There's a lot of high pressure, a lot of stress. There's a lot of high targets to be met.
I was quite strict. In my mind, I said, looking for my hand, my picking will spoil.
To allow all banks and all the players in the space.
15% inflation target achievable in 2025.
The command and vision philosophy of both the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and indeed all the service chiefs.
I am, of course, a great admirer of the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
BusinessDay is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, BusinessDay has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. Our premium offerings are further enriched with syndicated content from esteemed sources like the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Harvard Business Review. At BusinessDay, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications.
For being consistent in organizing these CEO forums for almost the last 14 years, I think this was a commendation, and I think something that will encourage them to continue.
From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, BusinessDay fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections, bridging the gap between inspiration and achievement. For businesses seeking visibility, our strong digital presence offers unparalleled opportunities, with millions of followers across social media and a dynamic website attracting visitors from within and outside Nigeria. BusinessDay is the ideal platform to boost visibility for your products and services. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and expert opinions on Nigeria and Africa's business landscape, BusinessDay is your guide.
Hello, this is Bode Oshosami on Global Business Insights on BDTV, where we bring ideas and discussions on the business headlines.
Attention business leaders. Want to make informed decisions? Join the ranks of the best with Premium Business Day. Access in-depth analysis and expert opinions to stay ahead. Subscribe now at premium.businessday.ng and unlock premium content. Plus, you get 50% off your first subscription. Don't miss out. Make smarter choices and seize new opportunities. Sign up now and elevate your business game. Visit premium.businessday.ng today. Good morning and welcome to the BDTV Breakfast Show. I am Bethel Ogunjobi.
My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And this is the social listening segment on the BDTV Breakfast Show.
We're talking about the Fly Nigeria Act. Can you give us a background into what this is about?
We are here today on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, to gather opinion about a pressing issue.
I will look at the cost of petrol. We get very Nigeria with the suffer.
The income is not really increasing, but the prices of items are increased.
Nothing like service again. No. You only pray for that money to reach you that month.
There's a lot of high pressure, a lot of stress. There's a lot of high targets to be met.
I was quite strict. In my mind, I said, looking for my hand, my picking go spoil.
To allow all banks and all the players in the space
15% inflation target achievable in 2025.
The command and vision philosophy of both the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and indeed all the service chiefs. I am, of course, a great admirer of the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
BusinessDay is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, BusinessDay has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. Our premium offerings are further enriched with syndicated content from esteemed sources like the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Harvard Business Review. At BusinessDay, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications.
For being consistent in organizing these CEO forums for almost the last 14 years, I think this was a commendation, and I think something that will encourage them to continue.
From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, BusinessDay fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation, and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections, bridging the gap between inspiration and achievement. For businesses seeking visibility, our strong digital presence offers unparalleled opportunities, with millions of followers across social media and a dynamic website attracting visitors from within and outside Nigeria. BusinessDay is the ideal platform to boost visibility for your products and services. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and expert opinions on Nigeria and Africa's business landscape, BusinessDay is your guide.
This is the Business Day television broadcast.
Good morning and welcome to the BDTV Breakfast Show. I am Bethel Ogunjobi.
My name is Elizabeth Musa.
And this is the social listening segment on the BDTV Breakfast Show.
We're talking about the Fly Nigeria Act. Can you give us a background into what this is about?
We are here today on the streets of Lagos, Nigeria, to gather opinion about a pressing issue.
I go look at the cost of petrol. We get very Nigeria with the suffer.
The income is not really increasing, but the prices of items are increased.
Nothing like service again, no. You only pray for that money to reach you that month.
There's a lot of high pressure, a lot of stress. There's a lot of high targets to be met.
I was quite strict In my mind, I say, looking for my hand, my picking go spoil.
To allow all banks and all the players in the space
15% inflation target achievable in 2025.
The command and vision philosophy of both the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, and indeed all the service chiefs.
I am, of course, a great admirer of the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
BusinessDay is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, BusinessDay has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. Our premium offerings are further enriched with syndicated content from esteemed sources like the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Harvard Business Review. At BusinessDay, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications.
For being consistent in organizing these CEO forums for almost the last 14 years, I think this was a commendation, and I think something that will encourage them to continue.
From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, BusinessDay fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections.
Savviness of BusinessDay. Savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
Good afternoon and welcome to the BDTV News at Noon. I am Norma Obona. Let's see what's making headlines this afternoon. 20 governors under fire for delaying 70,000 naira minimum wage. Ukachukwu emerges APC governorship candidate for Anambra 2025. Zimbabwe to scrap tariffs on U.S. goods as it faces 18% Trump levy. Juventus intensify push for Osimhen amid Man United interest. Let's begin the news in Nigeria, where the Nigerian Union of local government employees, has revealed that about 20 states in the country have not implemented the 70,000 naira new minimum wage for local government workers and primary school teachers. According to the union, the states include Yobe, Gombe, Zamfara, Kaduna, Imo, Ebonyi, Cross River, Federal Capital Territory Abuja, Borno, and 11 other states. The Secretary General of the association, Mohammed Abubakar, revealed to newsmen that state commissioners of finance were frustrating the direct payment of allocation to the councils, which has affected the finances of the local government areas. Following the signing of the Minimum Wage Act 2024 into law, about 20 states commenced the implementation of the new wage law. Still on, Nicholas Ukachukwu has emerged a candidate of the All Progressive Congress in Anambra State and will fly the party's ticket at the November 8, 2025 governorship election. The results were announced by the chairman of the APC Electoral Committee and the governor of Cross River State, Senator Basi Otu, after the primary that ended on Sunday. Ukachukwu scored 1,455 votes to defeat his closest rival, Valentine Ozibo, who scored 67 votes in the primary that began on Saturday. In his acceptance speech, Ukachukwu thanked President Bola Tinubu for ensuring a hitch-free and transparent intra-party election process. And to end the local news, the 6th Division of the Nigerian Army has revealed that its operative has arrested 43 suspected oil thieves and recovered 254,000 liters of stolen products in the Niger Delta region. The army said a total of 14 illegal refineries were also destroyed, while 14 boats used for the illicit activity were destroyed. Acting Deputy Director, 6th Division Army Public Relations, Lieutenant Colonel Danjuma Jonah, revealed this in a statement issued in Port Harcourt on Sunday, March 6, 2025. Jonah said the feat followed a 6-day multiple operations conducted alongside other security agencies. And on the foreign scene, Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa has announced that he will suspend tariffs on goods imported from the US in an attempt to build a positive relationship with President Donald Trump's administration. This move comes days after Trump imposed 18% tariffs on Zimbabwean exports to the US. Zimbabwe has had strained diplomatic relations with the US since it adopted a controversial land policy about 25 years ago because of its poor human rights record. According to the US government data, trade between the two countries has amounted to only $111.6 million in 2024. Also, the Ghana International Trade and Finance Conference, GITFIC, has called on African nations to respond collectively to the sweeping reciprocal tariffs recently announced by the United States. In a press statement, the GITFIC warned that the new U.S. tariff policy unveiled on April 2, 2025 by President Donald Trump could trigger significant disruptions for smaller economies, particularly in Africa, unless a coordinated response is mounted. According to the group, a fragmented approach would weaken the continent's influence in global trade negotiations, urging African nations to utilize regional platforms like the African Union and the AFCFTA to coordinate a unified response. And now to sports. Juventus are ramping up efforts to sign Nigerian forward Victor Osimhen, who remains a strong summer target for Manchester United. Osimhen, currently on loan at the Turkish giants Galatasaray, has been in scintillating form this season, scoring 28 goals with 5 assists in 32 appearances across all competitions. While Manchester United have long been linked with a move for the striker, the reporters suggest that Juventus are pushing harder than ever to secure his signature during the upcoming summer transfer window. And to end the news, Southampton has been relegated from the Premier League after a 3-1 defeat to Tottenham Hotspur. Sunday's loss at Spurs was Southampton's 25th defeat in 31 Premier League matches this season, earning points from only 6 matches, including 2 wins and 4 draws. The club remains the first club to have suffered this fate, with as many as 7 matches still to play. The bottom of the table Saints have 10 points and are 22 points behind Wolverhampton Wanderers in 17th place with only 7 matches and 21 points to play for. These are the top headlines on the BDTV News at noon. I am Norma Obona. Stay tuned for more.
I am, of course, a great admirer of the impeccable credibility, professionalism, and business savviness of BusinessDay. If you really mean business in Nigeria, start your day with BusinessDay.
BusinessDay is West Africa's leading provider of business intelligence and information, delivering premium content across diversified media platforms, including online, mobile, and print. Since its inception in 2001 with a weekly newspaper production, BusinessDay has expanded its reach to provide exclusive content accessible through print, mobile, and online channels. Our premium offerings are further enriched with syndicated content from esteemed sources like the Financial Times, The Economist, and the Harvard Business Review. At BusinessDay, our mission is clear: to be the foremost provider of business and financial content, empowering readers to make informed decisions in Nigeria and Africa. Since our establishment, we have been committed to delivering insightful, relevant, and accurate information about Nigeria's business and finance environment, while contextualizing the impact of global events. We monitor the stock market, analyze the companies driving it, and report on government policies and their economic implications.
For being consistent in organizing these CEO forums for almost the last 14 years, I think this was a commendation, and I think something that will encourage them to continue.
From decoding market trends to dissecting economic shifts, we offer actionable investment ideas and serve as a compass for decision makers navigating complexity. Beyond headlines, BusinessDay fosters discussions on critical economic issues through impactful conferences and events. These platforms bring industry leaders together to share narratives that drive innovation and spark meaningful dialogues. Our events galvanize connections, bridging the gap between inspiration and achievement. For businesses seeking visibility, our strong digital presence offers unparalleled opportunities, with millions of followers across social media and a dynamic website attracting visitors from within and outside Nigeria. BusinessDay is the ideal platform to boost visibility for your products and services. If you're looking for in-depth analysis and expert opinions on Nigeria and Africa's business landscape, BusinessDay is your guide.